An anomaly can inflate your cloud bill, disrupt teams across the company, and still look like business as usual on your dashboards until it's too late. Today, we break down a set of updates that tighten control on capacity, visibility, and architecture cost across AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. Stay to know about the one incident that shows why this control matter and what it costs. So, starting with AWS, Amazon ECS managed instances is now available in all commercial AWS regions, so you can let AWS handle instance scaling and lower the TCO. Amazon ECS Managed Instances is a fully managed compute option that dynamically scales EC2 instances to match your workload and continuously optimizes task placements to reduce infrastructure cost. Because AWS provisions, configures, and operates the optimal EC2 instances for your task, you get the full EC2 capabilities while offloading infrastructure management. That can simplify operations and reduce total cost of ownership. Plus, you can still express preferences by specifying desired instance types in the managed instance capacity provider, including GPU, network optimized, and burst table families, and enable it via the console, Amazon ECS MCP server, or infrastructure as code tooling. So, predictive scaling for EC2 auto-scaling has expanded into 6 more regions to reduce over-provisioning before the demand hits. So predictive scaling learns from historical patterns and proactively launches instances so capacity is ready before the demand spikes, which helps avoiding over-provisioning and lowers EC2 cost. Additionally, it complements existing policies like target tracking or simple scaling and can be previewed in forecast-only mode. You can configure it via CLI, console, CloudFormation, or SDKs. So, in a new expansion, AWS Resource Explorer adds 47 resource types to better control inventory, for cost, and governance. So, their release expands searchable types to include services such as Amazon Bedrock, AWS CL Protections, AWS Glue rule sets, and many VPC lattice and WAF resource types. This broader visibility helps FinOps teams find and categorize resources faster for cost allocation, tagging audits, and cleanup efforts. Also, you can consult the supported resource types page for the full list and integrate Resource Explorer into your inventory workflows. And now, Amazon eBPS adds per volume average IOPS and throughput CloudWatch metrics so you can pinpoint and optimize volume performance. These metrics provide per minute visibility into driven average IOPS and throughput for EBS volumes attached to Nitro-based EC2 instances across all commercial regions, including government cloud and China. You can use them to troubleshoot bottlenecks and align provision performance with actual usage, and with CloudWatch you can build dashboards and alarms to trigger actions or notifications. Moreover, they are available by default at 1 minute frequency at no additional charge. Now we have new CloudWatch metrics to detect when EC2 instances exceed EBS IO limits, so that you can catch misprovisioned instances quickly. Instance EBS IOPS exceeded check, and instance EBS throughput exceeded check. Return 0 or 1 each minute to indicate whether driven IOPS or throughput exceed the instance maximum support. That makes it straightforward to create alarms and dashboards that detect application performance issues tied to instance sizing, enabling you to move to larger or different instance types before user impact grows. And more importantly, these metrics are available by default at 1 minute frequency for all Nitro-based EC2 instances with EBS attached in all commercial regions, including government cloud and China. In an increase for Lambda async payloads, the size has moved from 256 kilobytes to 1 megabyte. From a FinOps perspective, that can simplify architectures and potentially reduce costs tied to storage or orchestration used for chunking data. Plus, a note on the pricing model, the first 256 kilobytes counts as one request, and each additional 64 kilobytes up to 1 megabyte increments request charges. So, consider payload size when estimating cost. As mentioned, as always with payload increasing, you need to be careful about not adding too much payload in your event and being careful with those increments, because normally mean a lot of increase in the cost. So be careful using this new size and adapt it to your current workloads properly. Now, Amazon QuickSight launches a new visual data preparation experience that can create larger joins and reusable transforms. The visual editor supports multi-step transformations, append, aggregate, and joins with traceable steps, enables datasets to be used up to 10 level deeps, and supports cross-sort joins up to 20 GB, a 20x increase from 1 GB before. This improves traceability and reuse of prepared datasets across teams, which can cut redundant ETL work and reduce duplicated compute storage spent on repeated data prep. Also, the feature is available to QuickSight Author and Author Pro customers in a broad set of regions. Check all the specific regions in the documentation below. Now, AWS Transfer Family allows changing identity provider type without downtime, so you can smoother the authentication migrations. That supports switching between Service Managed Auth, Active Directory, and custom IDPs for SFTP, FTPS, and FTP servers without zero downtime. For teams managing file transfer workflows, it reduces migration risk and the operational cost of cutovers. It's available in all regions where Transfer Family is offered. Aurora DSQL supports resource-based policies to simplify access control for DSQL resources. You can also implement block public access BPA to further restrict access to public or VPC endpoints. This helps centralize access control and reduce admin overhead when managing many Aurora DSQL resources across accounts and regions. Moreover, the feature is available in a set of major regions. Consult the Aurora DSQL documentation to get started. And now we are moving on to Azure and the incident that they just had. But before that, if you can, please like and subscribe this video so we can keep doing these updates every week. And as some of you may know, there was a major Azure outage traced to Azure Front Door on Wednesday due to a configuration change. So Microsoft reported an outage that began around 11:40 a.m. Eastern Time tied to Azure Front Door. The company said it suspected an inadvertent configuration change and rolled back to a last known good state. The incident caused latencies, timeouts, and errors across more than a dozen Azure services, including Azure Databricks, Azure Maps, and Virtual Desktop, and produced downstream impacts to Microsoft 365. Microsoft reported improvements and tracked toward full mitigation by about 7:40 p.m., so about 8 hours of disruption. Additionally, customer impact included production disruption for organizations like Alaska Airlines, which reported disruption to key systems hosted on Azure. So a lot of companies were impacted by this. I have to be honest, I was working when this happened. I couldn't access the portal of Azure properly. So again, another disruption of a cloud provider this week. I hope this ends up being solved in the coming weeks and we don't have one outage every week anymore. Now to better news for FinOps. So now it's in public preview. You can share capacity reservation groups across subscriptions to centralize capacity and control cost. Previously, CRGs could only host VMs within the same subscription. Now, on-demand CRGs can be shared across subscriptions to enable resource reuse and centralized capacity management. That can simplify capacity planning, enable more cost-effective scale-out, and help separate security and capacity concerns across teams or business units. Also, this preview supports scenarios like centralized capacity pools and easier reuse of common configurations. Review the full update in the description below to learn more and join the preview. Now moving on to Google Cloud SQL for Postgres now cancels high memory connections to avoid out-of-memory failure so you can have more stable DB cost and uptime. This reduces the risk of instant crashes or forced restarts that can cause downtime and unexpected operational cost, for example, on emergency scaling or recovery work. Plus, by preventing out-of-memory events, teams can expect more stable database behavior and fewer emergency ops cycles. So that's been all for this week. I hope there are no more cloud provider outages for the next week, and we can have a very good time. This is the first one after the summit, so you haven't seen the ad on this video. I hope you enjoyed today's update and see you next week. Bye bye.